Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at Make My Move. Many of you are already aware that there are places around the world that want to attract remote workers to come and live there. But did you know that some of them will actually pay you to do so? Yeah, that's right. And aside from the cash incentives these towns might offer you, there are other incredible benefits ranging from free babysitting to concert tickets and even free healthcare. These places also make a terrific home base for digital nomads with super fast internet, friendly neighbors, and affordability and close proximity to major airports. In fact, the remote workers who relocate typically save around $20,000 per year by moving to these new communities. But perhaps most importantly, the locals in those communities are truly excited to welcome new movers in and get them plugged into the local network. The problem is, where do you start? But luckily, Make My Move is your one-stop shop for all things related to these towns. Since 2021, they've helped more than 1,000 remote workers and their families relocate, and through their platform, you can explore all the places that are offering incentives to come and live there, get personalized help to find the place that's right for you, connect with the locals, super important, and access support services to actually make the move a reality. Take advantage of all the benefits that come with your location independence by checking out makemymove.com via the link in the show notes. My guest today is Nienke Nina, who joins me all the way from Brazil, but she's originally from the Netherlands, and we dive into her personal story today because I think it reflects a lot of what people come to me with questions about, which is how do I get started in this lifestyle? I've never lived abroad. I'm not someone who knows other languages or has studied abroad or anything like that, so I don't have a lot of experience, and that was Nienke Nina's situation as well, and she's become this true professional on living the digital nomad lifestyle. She's written a book about it. She hosts a podcast about it. And she really goes deep on what it means to be a digital nomad. We also touch on her current situation in Brazil and some of the information that you might want to know if Brazil is a place on your list to consider going and spending some time in. And we get into why companies should consider hiring digital nomads, which most of us probably agree is worth considering. So this was a lot of fun. I loved getting to know her on a more personal level and the energy she brings and all the knowledge that she has to share on the subject of digital nomading and building a life for yourself abroad. She's clearly very passionate about it and has quite a lot to share. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Please help me in welcoming Nienke Nina to About Abroad. I love it that, someone in your position who's been like traveling the world for as long as you have and exploring, like you can make an adjacent travel story to like almost anything. And I love when I ask you like, hey, just to make sure, like, how do we get the name right? You're like, oh, I have an abroad story connected to that. So Nienke Nina, I'm doing my best there. You go by Nienke Nina. Nina, there's apparently a story connected to this that I'm already eager to hear.
Thanks so much for having me. And it's true. Like, I'm actually so proud of you, Chase, on how you pronounce my name because I have had like the weirdest pronunciations. Plus, a lot of people write it wrong. So when they write me, like when they send me an email or whatever, it's like, it's always wrong. But it's okay.
I mean, it's not the easiest one in the world, but maybe as someone with like, I have weird names also, like actually I can expand upon this from my standpoint as well, but I don't want to steal your thunder, so go for it.
All right, well, I'm curious now about your name. So I'm from the Netherlands, and my Dutch name, so my real name is Nienke, and this name is impossible to pronounce internationally. Like, even if I would like say it in like an international vibe, there's no like, if it's for example Dutch like Sarah, you could say Sarah. But with Nienke, there's not something like that, so it's just very difficult. But the story is that I was studying abroad, and I did this internship in Italy, And when I was there, people couldn't pronounce my name. And when I was studying abroad, it was fine because it was kind of funny. But then when I was really in the company, and it was a company in PR and there was like fashion, like when people said Nienke, they said Nienke. And it was very mean. Like it was almost like people were like, ugh, Nienke, like it was like dirty or something. So I felt like I don't want to have like a name like this. And in Italian, if they say Nina, it turns out like Nina. And it was so cute. And I was like, from now on, I'm Nina and not Nienke.
I love it. It does sound like very Italian. Like I immediately throw my hands up in the very Italian way, Nina. I love that. And yeah, I can relate to this. Like, so actually like my full name is Dana Chase Warrington. I've been called Chase my entire life. And Dana is sort of a unisex name that can be used male or female, but it's like predominantly a female name. So this is like always very confusing and very hard to explain. But like both names, Dana and Chase. Like first, if I give my full formal name, it's always like, in whatever language you're talking. Usually, if I'm talking to people who are coming from another language, like trying to explain that in another language is really hard, and people just don't get it. And then they're like, "Is this a cultural thing? Like in America, are most men named Dana?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, then why are you Dana?" I'm like, "I can't explain. Talk to my parents." So I have like that whole thing, and then chase is also like a verb to chase that people always have a lot of questions about, and also not a very common name, especially like when I was younger. So like it is always a funny thing. And then living in Spain the last 5 years, people really struggle with saying chase, and they just say che,
Chai.
che, and che. Especially people in the south, where I have like a lot of friends in Andalusia, they cut the s's off of the ends of a lot of words. So everybody just called me che, che. And I don't know. I've always had a lot of fun with it.
That's so much fun. I'm very curious how they would pronounce it in Asia, like in Japan or China. Che, che. It's something like
Che,
that.
yeah.
Che, che.
Also challenging.
That's so funny. Well, actually, to
Definitely.
elaborate a little bit more on the name, so I kind of turned it back to Nienke, but then I made it Nienke Nina so people can choose. Because if you say Nienke Nina, it's such a weird name. And it's kind of like a jingle, like a commercial, like da 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 da, Nienke Nina. And I was like, okay, this is like the new version, which I introduced during my nomad life. I was like, let's go, and then people will figure out what they can use. But you can call me Nina. I respond more to Nina than Nienke. My parents were visiting me here, and my dad didn't understand something, so he was like Nienke, and I was like, yep. That's it. When my dad is
Yep.
mad, he would say Nienke.
I like the sound of Nienke Nina, and now I understand the whole context, and the whole audience does as well. So we're off to an awesome start. You kind of touched on something there, though. Like names are interesting, languages are interesting this way because it sort of changes your whole persona in a way. Like people go abroad and they like change their names a lot of times, or they experiment with like learning new languages, and then when you learn a new language, you can kind of like almost become a different person in a different language, in a way. Like just your mannerisms change, or the way you accentuate certain words, or whatever. So but I think that whole like process of being abroad for people, particularly in like your younger years, can really kind of shape you in for your future years. And I gather from listening to your podcast and knowing a little bit about you from previous chats, like your study abroad experience was something that kind of helped you navigate this new world, become a digital nomad and such. So I wondered if we could kind of like rewind back to that space in your life, and talk about it, and how that kind of like shaped where you were going, and then we'll get to all the things, the cool things you're doing now.
Absolutely. So I am a huge advocate for going abroad, whether it's studying not just a holiday, but like an experience abroad. So it could be like volunteering, and it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to be young to do that. Like even if you're like listening to this and you're like, I don't know, 50, 60 plus, even 80 plus, like go abroad. I feel like going abroad has not just changed my life, it just redefined or reshaped me as a person. And that is still happening. That's a dynamic, ongoing process. And I am so grateful for this experience in a whole. Like, it's been amazing. But where it started for me was studying abroad. And I wasn't like really book smart growing up, so this was not an opportunity for me. Like, this wasn't in my path, but I was very committed because of one thing. I was watching The Hills when I was younger, and all these girls that had so much drama with their boys and the way they were expressing themselves and all these things. And somehow I was like, I want to go to the drama with a boyfriend and in English. And I just pictured myself doing that. But I didn't speak a word English. Actually, I only speak English for like 8.5, like maybe now 9 years, which is like, that's pretty cool. Lots of practicing, but it's like, so I had this thing, and then I was like, oh yeah, but I cannot do that because in my study level or student level, that wasn't a thing. You can't go abroad, because I was just not book smart. I worked myself my way up, and then I had the opportunity to go abroad. I did the IELTS test. I just passed the test. And like, I literally was like, when the hearing exercise was, I was like with my head like half like like my ears facing the wall or the ceiling to hear whatever they said. When I had the conversation with the lady, I was like, I really need to go abroad. Like, please give me enough points, because I knew I was like I wasn't good at it. And somehow it happened. Thanks, universe. And then I went abroad. I studied in Denmark. And this was my first experience of meeting people that were not like me. Different food habits, different ways they interact. So yeah, that's it. And then I said right there, I was like, I'm not going back to the Netherlands. That's not going to happen. I need to stay abroad. That was my next mission.
We share a lot in common in this way. I'm glad we hadn't talked about it before and are getting to now, because it's actually like a part of my life I don't get to chat about much on the show either. But like, for me, I didn't leave the U.S. until I was 18 years old. Even though I had a desire to travel and such, we just like didn't. It wasn't a part of our like, we did some domestic travel in the U.S., but not like a ton of, or not any international travel. And then my senior year of high school, I saved up money and went abroad for a few weeks and went to Australia. And in a similar way to you, I think, like, although Australia is very far from the U.S., like culturally, we're not talking like drastically different. I didn't insert myself into like Indonesia or Latin America or something. Like, I was just in a place where I was still speaking English. Like, I could have blended in, pretty well. But I was immediately like hooked. And I
Yeah,
thought, like, I just have to make this a core part of whatever I do. And then I went off to college after that and like, did the study abroads and the internships abroad, and like constantly seeking any opportunity to insert internationalism into my life. And it sounds like the same for you.
absolutely. And just to point out on Australia, I was in Australia. It's so hard to understand these people when you're not a native speaker.
Yeah, I think if you don't learn Australian English, like, that can be really, I mean, the same with like British or Scottish, I think in particular. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people who have learned American English, for example, and then been like, I can't do it. I don't know. It goes both ways though, I guess. Yeah. That's amazing to me though, that you just like, you've only been, I mean, you host a podcast now in English. You're very comfortable in English. Like, the study abroad aspect was super, like a supercharger for the English, you think?
Yes, it was one of the many superchargers. Like, one of the things I like, really reflecting back on like this whole journey, I think studying abroad really helped me with my confidence, because I did not speak English. I was learning words and trying to form phrases, and I had to, because no English, no friends. There was only one Dutch girl in my program, And she was really good at like speaking English, and she helped me a lot. But it was just like that. If I wouldn't speak like no language, no friend. So I was
Mm.
forced. But that's only like conversational English. Like, hey, what do you want to eat? What are we gonna drink tonight? Like that kind of stuff. Or, oh, I like your outfit. Or like, oh, what are you like, stuff like that. But then there is this whole other world where you have to, if you want to stay abroad, like how are you going to communicate um, in a way that is more culturally appropriate internationally? How are you going to work? Like when I moved to the Philippines, I was there in a tech startup, and I remember very well my first emails that I wrote. This is like for months straight. I had girls in my team looking at it because I'd never written a professional email before, let alone in English. Like that was a very strange thing. So it was one of the many superchargers. Absolutely.
That's mind-boggling to me as someone who didn't grow up learning languages either and is trying now. It's challenging. It's like, I mean, so for some people it's not. Like I have some friends, or I've had somebody on the show, John Lee, a guy that he comes to mind immediately. Like he speaks like 6 or 7 languages. My boss is at Doist is Dutch, and I mean not Dutch, Danish, and speaks like I think 6 or 7 languages,
Wow.
and like they just come easy to them, and they don't really have to put a lot of effort in. I'm not that person. I have to put effort in,
Same.
unfortunately. So that's mind blowing and like super courageous to think about like moving to the Philippines, not being super comfortable in English yet, and being like, okay, now I'm going to work in English and write business emails in English. Like that's, yeah. I mean, you have to be thrown into the deep end to grasp that, I
A
guess.
little bit, but I also have to say that I surrounded myself with people that were excited and willing to help me with that. Like, yes, it's me speaking English right now, but it's been my community that helped me to get there. So it was in Denmark, it was there. Like you have all these people that are also learning English, which is great. Then I did my internships, and my friend from the Philippines, she was my housemate. So can you imagine? I was in the kitchen asking her like, oh, where is the thingy? And just pointing at things. And she said, Nina, no more thingy. We're gonna give everything names. We had like sticky notes on things because I would keep forgetting the words. And this is how I learned more household English. And then when I moved to the Philippines, there I learned my first business English. And now I learn more entrepreneurial English. And now I'm an expert in digital nomadism. So that's also good English. But it continues to go. And to be honest, the podcast is a supercharger too, because I had an American on my
Yeah.
podcast, and this guy was using words. I was like, in the meantime, like very softly Googling things because I was like, oh, I don't know what this means. I was like, oh my God, I don't really speak English well enough because I don't understand the word. So it's always it's always you and community, and there's always learning opportunities. It's never done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You never arrive. Like that whole mantra like applies to everything. I feel like you're always continuously climbing some mountain, and it's definitely true with languages. Well, kudos to you for getting to a pretty high point on that mountain in the language aspect. That's really, really cool part of the story. What were you doing in the Philippines?
Yeah, so I did my first work experience there. So after this first half year of studying abroad, I did like internships, and like I said, I didn't want to go back, and I didn't really know what like the next step would be. And then my housemate in Italy where I lived the second time, she invited me to go to the Philippines, and I was like, yeah, sure, because I always wanted to go to Asia, and I just bought a one-way ticket. I was just like, okay, adios people, I'm going, and let's see what happens. And then I came there. I was kind of lucky because of the community there is very thick community. I was able to find a remote job in community management, and soon I worked myself up to be the general manager of that tech start. It was like a tech education startup. So it was really, really cool, and that's what I did there, and so grateful for that experience. Like, it's absolutely
Uh,
amazing.
the Philippines is a country I really have a desire to get to. One, I've got like a team there that works on About Abroad. I'm always communicating with my friends in the Philippines, and then two, like it just looks like such a beautiful country, like all the islands
Yeah.
and everything you have to experience there. It feels like unspoiled already. And I'm really, I don't know, I'm looking forward to spending some time there at some point.
You should. It's hard to nomad there though. Like the internet is very challenging. So take a proper holiday, I would say.
Yeah, a friend of mine he just spent a month there. He's probably listening to this, Grayson. You know, I'm talking about you. Like he told me the same thing. He spends like a month he's a permanent digital nomad, 1 month in a different location, and then changes to another place. And he spent a month in the Philippines and said exactly that. He was like, one of my favorite places I've ever been, but I needed to disconnect from work for a few weeks because there were power outages and Wi-Fi
Yeah.
was tough and things like that. Is also your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the city, it's not so much because you're, like in every other city, like it's pretty okay. But yeah, if you go like island hopping and those kind of things, and if you really think about it, do we really need to have the best internet on the most gorgeous island of this planet? Like,
Exactly.
it's like we are so I don't know how to say that kindly, but I feel like we're so picky with internet sometimes because it's like you're at this amazing place or in this amazing island or in a mountain, whatever you're doing. But still we want to have the best of the best internet and we get so impatient and mad when there's not good internet. I'm just like, I understand it, but at the same time I don't understand it.
You know, I was on a plane, like an airplane recently, and this guy sitting behind me was just like, so we were delayed by like an hour, and he was just like so furious and just like ridiculously angry. And he's just talking about how this airline can't get anything right and how, you know, this is insane, how his whole life is ruined because this flight's messed up. And I'm thinking like, man, do you realize that like for this thing to fly, which is an amazing thing in and of itself, like this giant piece of metal flies through the air at like, I don't know, like 500 miles an hour. I can't do the conversion to kilometers per hour. Sorry, friends around the world. And like, we're going to arrive to the other side of this continent in like 2.5 hours. The thing's flying on like oil, which, you know, jet fuel, which comes out of the ground. And it's like a whole process in of itself. Like, this is so stupid. Like, we're going to be an hour late. Your life will go on. And I hear people do this with Wi-Fi all the time too. I'm like, I get it, you're a digital nomad, man, but like, yeah, you're sitting in this beautiful place. Like, maybe turn the video off for right now, and your life will go on too.
Yeah, exactly. But this is also one of the perks of living abroad, right? And I'm sure that your audience and all the guests, and including yourself, resonate with this. Is that once you live abroad, once you start seeing other things that are important or that matter to other people, you truly open up, and it's kind of like all of these sort of society pressure things, they slowly fall away because in the Netherlands and in the US probably as well, everything has to be super quick, super efficient. Like there's so much push culture, and I understand. I actually experienced that as well when my parents were here, and I understand where they're coming from. But for them to see this Dutch girl, which is their daughter, just being so chill with everything, they were really looking at me. I was like some kind of alien or something sometimes because I was like, we just need to flow, or we're just gonna ride the wave, and they were like, what?
This is so true. Have you found you've like slowed down? Like, I mean, I think you're saying this, but like I found this for myself at least, like moving to Spain from the US, spending a good bit of time in like Latin America. Like they joke a lot about like the mañana culture, but that there's this plus side to that that's like it's really forced me to like chill out and like slow down. And I love the word tranquilo in Spanish, which is just like just everything's tranquilo, it'll be fine. And that, while that can be frustrating at sometimes when you really really need something, like most of the time urgency is overrated, and we're going to be just fine. So I've found that to be a positive in
Yeah,
my life for sure.
absolutely. How do you explain that to other people, like people that don't live a life like you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had friends ask me like, like you, man, you seem like a lot calmer than you were before. Like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like there's, I guess, downsides because you could make less money or you could not get the promotion that you want, or not
Mhm.
have the house that you want. A lot of it's tied to like work and material things, and I kind of view it differently in that I'm enjoying my life a lot more than I used to. I think I find myself like a lot more like enjoying the little things in life
Mhm.
and being a bit more relaxed, and putting more emphasis on the things around work, and not freaking out when things don't go right. Like when you're everything's so much tied to your expectations. So when your expectations change just a little bit, then you adjust to those pretty quickly. But I don't know that I have a great explanation. Like it's fun talking with people like yourself who can relate, because I don't necessarily think I can explain it very well. I don't know what your thoughts are though.
I agree. Like it's hard to explain it because it's an experience, and it's been, at least for me, I think, like, yeah, like I said, 8 or 9 years like living abroad now. It took me so long to get to the point where I am today. How can I explain that to someone that is not even in the early stage, not even in a preparation phase? Like, the mind isn't as opened up yet. So I think it comes with experience, and it develops over time. And also, like, when it comes to expectations, like, any time in any given situation when we have expectations, there's so much opportunity for failure, and that is not always great if that failure is seen as failure but not as stepping stones. So it's all about, like, how you perceive the world, how do you face challenges, how do you solve challenges when you don't want them, like. And this is the mindset and the thinking that, if you don't have that, it's literally speaking like a foreign language. So I cannot explain to you in Dutch something because you're going to be like, what, Nina? It just sounds like the whole time. So it's like that. So it's the language is, I think, so much more than just like the words and the voice. It's an experience as well. That's very deep. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I can totally understand where you're coming from. And I imagine this is like especially true for you. If I understand correctly, you're living in Brazil right now, and you've been there for some time. And those I'm drawing some stereotypes here that may be correct or may not be correct. So correct me where I'm wrong. Feel free to. But like I imagine your Dutch life versus your Brazilian life can come with a lot of those differences, that can be fun to navigate.
Yeah, it's two different worlds. To be honest, I don't really notice it so much because obviously I'm not so Dutch anymore. Like, I haven't been living in my home country for so long, so I don't feel very Dutch in my day-to-day behavior and in my mindset and in my thinking. When I'm in the Netherlands, I think that I sort of there's always this default, right? Because I'm turning 33. So I have, like, of those 33 years, there are 9 years that I'm this developing international abroad girl, and then everything before that is Dutch. So I think it's going to take me a bunch of more years to not have that default anymore. But when I'm in the Netherlands, I don't feel it. But for me, it was actually emotionally quite shocking, but also celebrative, like how much I've developed and how far I am away from some of the belief patterns and thinking patterns that what I grew up with. Now, I don't say that anything is bad. I'm not better or anything, but it's just like when you see it so black and white in front of you, it's like, holy crap, that is intense, because you don't always get that opportunity to, see A and B. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, does anything in particular jump out at you? Like I have a few things for me that when I go back to the US, I don't notice about myself until I return home.
Mm.
And then I'm like, oh, my mindset's changed on it. I didn't know that until now. Is there something like that that's coming to your mind, that when you say like, oh, like I see this version A and this version B of me?
Yeah, I think the most recent thing is because my parents were visiting was kind of how I perceive challenges. And also how I see experiences. So we were in Rio. It was on the bucket list of my parents. They're so cute to have a bucket list. Um, and I love Rio. It's one of the places where I feel home and that I can call home. So we were there, and obviously everything went like the Brazilian way. So the pickup would be between 12 and 3, and that was ridiculous. And like a lot of things were ridiculous in their minds. And that's exactly what they said. That's a very Dutch thing to just say it unfiltered and just like be really hard on things and people. Um, and I noticed that with everything, I was like, just so chill. It didn't affect me. Like I didn't get upset, I didn't get frustrated. And for me the AB was that I don't experience frustration anymore when things are not going my way. I feel like I was so highly flexible. I'm but then seeing my parents struggle with these with these things, that was really hard for me because I wanted to like share my vision and I tried, but they were in their frustration in some moments, so they weren't opening up to what I had to say. And that then you have a miscommunication in language, like, and Dutch people are very confrontational, so when that happens they will say it. And I was just like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, because I don't want to disrespect my parents either. It's you know what it's like. It was very strange.
Yeah, yeah, I can see this. I mean, dealing with those like gray areas is a big thing that you become accustomed to living abroad,
Yeah,
and you find yourself saying like, I'm more okay with between 12 and 3, or like, stop the service person will come by sometime tomorrow,
yeah.
and it's like, well, what time? Like, just tomorrow, maybe afternoon. You're like, okay,
Actually,
and when things don't go right.
yeah, and also what I just came to mind, I didn't realize it, but I'm realizing it now. I also have something to do when I have to wait 3 hours because I mean, work, there's always work. So I just open up my laptop and bam, here I go. I understand that when you're on your holiday or when you don't have this lifestyle like us, that you can always work on something because your work is in your laptop and your laptop is always with you. Like, that's a very different experience. Although if I have to wait now and I don't want to work, I listen to an audiobook or I'm gonna do my Duolingo. Like, I will keep myself busy with positive stuff. I'm not gonna scroll the news and stuff, so it's, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point too, because like your time as a digital nomad, like this is your life, whereas for them, this is their 2-week holiday,
Yeah,
or something like that. So that's another thing is you have to be. I've had people who have like wanted to come visit me abroad somewhere, and like they've got these like packed agendas of things they want to do, and like 3 countries in 8 days and stuff, which is a super American stereotype. That I love, being like, hey, let's just slow down. Maybe you want to spend like a week in this place, and they're like, look, man, I don't have all the time that you do. Like
yeah.
I've got my 1 week of vacation. We're gonna really do this. So I think you do have to be like empathetic towards everybody's situation, but yeah, I totally notice these things also, and it's funny how just just by osmosis, being in other places, you pick up on a different way of life and kind of find yourself navigating those things. So I have a lot of fun with it as well, and I think it's a good growing mechanism. Like that's why I really recommend. I talk to a lot of people who have kids, or the kids themselves who are in high school, considering like high school study abroad or college study abroad or something.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, it is the best learning experience. Like, yeah, you're going to go have a blast. You're going to go see a lot of stuff. You're going to meet really cool people, but you're going to learn a ton just by being there.
Absolutely. And I think also that I don't understand that even today, abroad is so difficult for people. Like, why isn't this always part of a program? Like, why isn't there always an exchange? Like, I remember back then I had to fight so hard because of my points and because of my stuff. Like, it was so damn difficult. And I'm happy I really fought for it. But like for me, like learning another language is important. I think that we all should by now speak English. I know it's a lot of pressure, but I think it's very important because it opened up my world, friendships, work, even like because of that I can work from anywhere. Because of that I'm sitting here with you today. It's like I think that it's for everyone. And that's also why I said in the beginning, even if you're like not like in your 20s anymore, you can still go abroad. Like you're never too old to go abroad. Absolutely not.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at Greenback Tax, the very best in U.S. expat tax services and the company that I've trusted to handle my tax situation since I moved abroad in 2015. Greenback is 100% focused on helping U.S. expats with their taxes, and to date, they've filed almost 50,000 returns for nearly 15,000 happy customers like me living in more than 200 different countries around the world. After 7 years working together, I can say with confidence that they make one of the most painful parts of life abroad an absolute breeze with their automated systems that store all of your information for you to make tax filing easy year after year, and the friendly advisors who you actually have a working relationship with. There are no robots over at Greenback. Best of all, everyone is a CPA or enrolled agent with a specialty in U.S. expat taxes, which means they know exactly how to help you take advantage of some incredible tax breaks because you're living abroad, not in spite of it. As of January 23rd, tax season has officially arrived, so it's time to get started. Learn more about Greenback Tax today by visiting greenbacktaxservices.com via the link in the show notes. Hey guys, if you're still around and enjoying this episode, then I think you might actually like our once a month newsletter as well. If you'd like to sign up, just open up the show notes of the episode you're currently listening to, scroll down, and look for aboutabroad.com/newsletter. It takes about 30 seconds to sign up. It's a fantastic way to support the show, and I think you'll be pleased with the information that we provide every month as well. Thanks a lot for listening. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I was hoping to actually circle back to Brazil a little bit because I've not actually had a chance to talk to a lot of people about Brazil from the way that you can talk about it, because you've digital nomaded around this country for some time now and seen a lot of it. I love following your stories on Instagram and seeing you bouncing back and forth between these mega cities and beaches and jungles, and it's obviously a place that doesn't need a lot of introduction. People know about Brazil. But I think you've seen a lot more of it than the average person. So I want to start real broad, I guess, with this and just kind of talk about how Brazil came to be where you've decided to spend so much of your time. And then maybe we can go a little bit more narrow and focus on some of your favorite places and experiences around the country.
Absolutely. Always love to promote Brazil. Brazil is not paying me to do this. Maybe they should.
They should. After this episode, maybe.
Right? I'm going to send it to them. So, so I came to Brazil because I was in Europe during the pandemic, and that's where I met my partner. He's from Brazil, and we both like to live a beach life. We both like to surf, although I really suck at it. So I'm not like a surfer, but I sometimes like it when I don't get the board in my face or a jellyfish.
Surfer problems.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm on the same level as you. As I really suck at surfing. I shouldn't even say I suck at surfing because I just can't surf, but I really like the idea and I like being out there in the water with a board. I've picked up SUP, stand-up paddleboarding is the old man way of picking up surfing. And I'm cool with that. Water, board, I'm happy.
I haven't I have done on a lake that, but never in the ocean. I should actually try that one day. Anyways, yeah, so that's how we came here. I know that Brazil has also digital nomad visa. So usually you can stay here up to 6 months. Wait, no, I'm saying it wrong. 90 days. And then there's different visas. Well, I am here because I can stay actually longer because of my partner. We have a partnership, which is something that's really nice because that allows me to stay longer. That was never part of the plan, but I am so grateful that he came into my life. I'm so grateful that I found a home in Brazil. And what I love about Brazil mostly is it's so diverse. A lot of people think about Brazil oh, Rio de Janeiro, and that's it. Or, oh, Brazil with, I don't know, big butts, or people with dark skin color, or stuff like that. But when you're really in Brazil, you see so many different things. The place where I'm right now, I could go as a Brazilian because it's a German part of Brazil. So the actually the people are very tall here. I'm not so tall, but it's it's very in the south is very different from in the north, and the diversity of the country from top to bottom is crazy, and that makes it an exciting country that you don't want to just do for 2 weeks unless you just want to be in Rio. But it's a place where I would recommend stay longer. Yeah,
Yeah, totally. I think like people do think of Rio and the few of the stereotypes you mentioned, but that diversity is what flies maybe a bit under the radar. And I mean, when you think about Brazilian beaches and islands and jungles and like
mm,
waterfalls, and then you also add in the fact that you have these vibrant cities, and a lot going on there. Like it's a place that we all should have on our bucket list.
absolutely.
Is there any like particular places you have enjoyed spending some time over the last couple years?
Yeah, definitely. So there are actually three places where I love to be. So number one is Rio. Mostly because Rio is a city that has a lot of nature around it. So the state of Rio has so much nature. The beaches are absolutely gorgeous. Like it's crazy. But then there's also mountain. You have waterfalls. You have amazing trails. And then when you're in Rio in the city, you can have an incredible city life. But because it's on the beach, or it's like beachside, right? You also have a beach life, and beach life is surfing. People there in the morning, like the people that stay in the city, they work out on the beach like from like 5 a.m. till 8 a.m. There's a whole world going on there because people are working out, hanging out. So that's very nice. The second place that I really love is Florianopolis. That is in the
Mm.
south. That's where I am right now. I've spent here almost half a year, and I just came back here. It has a bit of a Bali culture, so there's a lot of cafes. There's a lot of vegan food. There's a lot of yoga. There's also surf. It's also next to the beach. It's a little bit more developed. What I do see here is that like there it's a little bit less mixed here. Like in Rio, you see people from all walks of life in the city. Here is a little bit less mixed, but the people are incredibly nice. It's more likely that they speak English here as well. In Rio, not everyone speaks English, which is good for your Portuguese, but it's challenging. And then the third place is Itacaré. This is in Bahia, and Bahia is known for the music, for samba, and for amazing food. And this is a place that is very small, but amazing surf, amazing food, also cafe culture. I'm The internet is a bit challenging, I gotta say, like, but it's developing. So I think that in the next coming years, like that is going to be one of the nomad hubs because it's pretty accessible. Like, so those are, yeah, really my three favorite places. But like, there's so many other places where you can go then on a holiday, or just like quick weekend getaways.
Yeah, I mean it's huge country too. Like I don't not everybody's very geographically you know inclined to understand like where these places sit and how big they can be. And Brazil is massive when you look at it on a map, and so
Yeah,
it's much more than what you might just think of and what first comes to your mind.
absolutely. I feel like it's the size of Europe. I don't know how accurate that is, but it looks like that on the map.
Yeah, we'll go with that. It's more or less, and how do you feel like from a safety standpoint? Like, are you when you're walking around Rio and you're in have you like found that generally speaking you're very comfortable? I know you're there with your partner, but just I think it's worth addressing because people will ask again. They tie things to stereotypes, and it's worth mentioning.
Absolutely. And I think it's good that you also asked because, you know, it's true. Brazil is a very complicated country. There are many places where there's a lot of poverty, where people don't have drinking water, where there's no food. I'm like, I'm not gonna like shove that under the rug. Like that is true. I'm not saying that it's good that there is violence and all these things, but I understand that especially in places like Rio, you have the very, very rich, like crazy rich, um, on the beach during the day next to a kid from the favela, for example. So that contrast, because the city is like the favelas there are built on the mountain that are outside that are protecting the city basically. So it's a very like that is there's no gray areas. It's a very black and white, like rich poor. So that's hard. Now from a safety point of view, it depends where you are. In here in Florianopolis and in Itacaré, I sometimes don't even lock my house. Like it's just like I forget. Like it's not a problem. I'm not anxious. In Rio, I am anxious a little bit more, but you navigate through that as well. Like at night, I don't walk alone. I will take an Uber. The Uber is super cheap, so that's great. If there's anything uncomfortable, I know that the easiest thing to do is just walk in a store and just wait there for a little bit. And yeah, like in Rio, I wouldn't like have my phone out. But I mean, if I walk in kind of a weird street in Paris, I wouldn't do that either. So
Yeah.
like but other than that, I know that some of my friends, they had uncomfortable experiences. I never had a super uncomfortable experience, but I think it's also because I'm like anything can always happen, but I don't go drunk on the street in Rio midnight. I don't visit a like stuff like that. I think a lot of the things that we experience also depend on how you are in this world. And then there's like the really unlucky cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's good context, I think. And you're right to like not shove it under a rock. Like that would be, I don't think that would be worth very much for the audience
Hmm.
who's considering going and spending time there. People will have these questions. And so it's perfectly fine to like call a spade in certain situations, but also like brush past those things and say like, look at all these beautiful places that exist beyond that stereotype where there are places where you don't even feel inclined to lock your door, for example, and where you said like, oh, this place has like a Bali vibe, and you blend right in, and so like there's, I don't know, there's a lot to be said for all those things. It gives us a good like picture of from the outside looking in. So, thank you for that. Is there on the Bali vibe question? I'm just curious, like, do you feel that like is Brazil and some of these places you mentioned, like, are they still feeling very Brazilian, or have they been like overrun by digital nomads and expats at this point? Or is that like, are they still clinging to the culture and the local vibe, or is that being tainted in any way? I'm always really curious about this and some of these like hot spots where
Hmm.
people are going to from all around the world. That's awesome. I love that. I love being in that vibe. But at the same time, like sometimes it can get to a point where it like reduces the feeling. Like I'm like, wait, am I even
Yeah.
abroad anymore, or just like am I in little America? So yeah, I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a little bit difficult to answer that in terms of a cultural perspective because Brazil has a very wide culture. Like the world in Sao Paulo is very different from Rio and Floripa. Like that's very different. But what I do love here is that Brazil didn't have this massive digital nomad flood, not like Mexico has, not like Portugal had, and not like Bali has. I don't think that that will happen because many people are and I understand are scared to go to Brazil. It is a challenging country. But I do think that like it's a risky thing. Like currently, I feel like super in Brazil vibes, and I think that will remain. But yeah, like since more digital nomads are coming, and you can see it already in the Airbnbs, and you can see like how cafes are like organizing their space, like it's this sort of wave that we're in that this is becoming the new normal to have enough internet cafes to have like other like international food options. So I don't know, it could happen in Brazil, but I think because there's still a bad stigma with Brazil, that not there won't be that big of a flood. But they have a digital nomad visa, so I think that Brazil is definitely hoping for it, that a lot of people would come here.
Yeah. Do you know anything about that visa? Like any bullet points on? I know you don't have to utilize it yourself, but just curious while we're chatting about it if you have any
Yeah.
information.
I'm okay. So I know that they have the visa, and a year ago they introduced it, I think, and everyone wasn't sure what it was, including the people that were supposed to like handling the visa. I spoke with some people; they eventually managed, but it's not an easy process. But then I'm thinking, is any visa like easy like that? It's always such I want to say shit show. Can I say that here?
Yeah, you can use your foul Dutch language here, no problem.
but
Of course, no problem.
they have a digital nomad visa, and I do know that there are some immigration or like visa agents that are specialized in this. And what is it called? A citizen remote. They probably also know more about like this particular status of the visa. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. I didn't bring you on to be the digital nomad visa expert for Brazil. Just curious if you knew anything. You know more than me. Um, and I always think like with these things, they're changing so fast. Like it's best just to find a local
Yeah.
lawyer. You know, Google digital nomad visa Brazil, and you'll have all the answers you could possibly want. Or ask ChatGPT. They'll also
Yeah.
probably
Or
give you some plenty of information.
or find yourself a very sexy Brazilian and make your way through that.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Take the route you've gone, you know, and just get the local to point you in the right direction. I think it's an interesting point you talk about, like with the digital nomads, because you yourself are a very prominent digital nomad in the space and helping lots of other people become digital nomads. You've written a book on this. You host a podcast all about it. You work in this space, like you've done quite a bit on that front. So how are you navigating these waters of like, you know, wanting to help a lot of people become digital nomads, and you're obviously, you know, you love Brazil, but also wanting to make sure that this like wave doesn't come and tarnish things at the same time. Like, is there any struggle there, or like how do you manage your workload, I guess, in that regard?
Yeah, so I love that question. I think we could do a whole episode on that. Managing workloads is always, I mean, you know it as a head of a remote productivity company almost. So what I found is that I love being the host of the Digital Nomads Daily podcast. I loved writing my book. I love helping nomad friendly companies that are creating products or services to like help them and consult them on like what nomads want, what they need, how they feel about things. Because I talk to so many nomads, so I really love this part of me where I'm inspiring people, enabling people, but not just people, also companies. And that makes my work actually so much fun that I find it really hard to disconnect and just not work. Like my head is constantly flowing with ideas and things and here and there, that at one point I just really need to like find like the off button, and it's not there because I'm truly excited about everything that's happening and also where the space is moving, and even the challenges. Sometimes they really suck, but I'm there to fight for the nomads, like to really help them to make this happen. Because yeah, but okay, so to manage my workload, I batch things. I work with people I like working with. I experiment a lot. I allow myself to perceive everything as a learning experience. There's always like things that don't go the way we want it to go, but that's okay. I love my daily walks. Those are like my daily walk is the non-negotiable, definitely. I love my time with my nomad cat. That's also a non-negotiable.
We share some non-negotiables, by the way. My morning routine consists of like a morning walk or jog with my dog, and also like a coffee that I just get to actually like sit and enjoy before diving into work. But like that special time for me before I start like paying everyone else with my time and attention and energy is super important. And I
Yeah.
think like having that separation, I'm sure you agree, because you talk about compartmentalizing, like having that time to yourself when you're living in a world where theoretically you could work 24/7 and people pulling at you from all around the world 24/7. It's important to have those disconnects and separations and kind of like be ruthless about it, and like, this is my time.
Yeah, and I think also just to add to that, it's okay to have that. Like, even if your coworker, your teammate, your friend is texting you at very late or very early, like, it's okay to put your phone under the couch and just be like, I'm not touching that thing. It's okay to have notification free sessions throughout the day. Like, I usually now I don't even have my phone in like my vision anymore. I just put it somewhere else, not in the fridge, but like somewhere where it's gone, because you get constantly pulled out, and also turning off notifications, all these things, because you only like, work is always there, it's never going to stop, people are always going to be there, but you really have to love yourself enough to truly take care of yourself. And I know that sounds like woo, but it's true. Like, and this is challenging. I'm not saying it's easy. Like, we all struggle with that, but it's important that you do, because you can't be an epic human if you feel shit inside. Like,
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, no, it is. And like, even from an organization standpoint, like you have to take it really seriously, because like their burnout and overwork is actually like one of the biggest cancers that remote teams face. And it's a reason a lot of people think like, oh, I shouldn't hire digital nomads or
Mm.
remote workers or embrace remote work because I don't know if people are working, and I can't see them working. How will I know? We could have a whole nother discussion about that. But like the statistics show that those people are much more likely to overwork, burnout, be working at weird hours of the night, and not live like a super healthy lifestyle if the organization doesn't take the proper measures to make sure that that doesn't happen and encourage you to actually disconnect and things like that. So
Absolutely.
that's it's a natural inclination, and that's why you see so much burnout amongst remote workers. And I think especially people who like haven't
Mm.
had the opportunity to really learn how to do this. Like, people are just learning on the fly right now, and they're like, oh, okay, like I'm armed with my laptop and I can work 24 hours a day and I'm going to be super productive. But it leads to, it's detrimental. And that attrition of employees is something that plagues a lot of teams that embrace this type of work. So caution.
Absolutely. I like, it's crazy. And to be honest, I think that so there's one side that a lot of digital nomads, especially remote workers and more like this the solopreneurs who are doing a lot on their own, they easily get like burned out and overwhelmed. But on the other hand, just to like add a perspective there, I think also digital nomads are, because adventure, self exploration, self development, growth, community building, broaden your horizon, all these things, adaptability, like that is something that we constantly are developing. I think for that reason, it's good to have digital nomads on your team, because they will be an inspiration and a motivation and an innovator for like, how do you manage your time? Like, how do you deal with the day to day muse of life? Like, and I think that this is maybe a misconception, unfortunately, that companies still have. Like, they will hire remotely but not the digital nomad folks because they travel. I i find that so hard, because I think like, if you have people that are highly adaptable, that are curious by nature, that are open to other communication styles, other work styles, other like people style, like everything, that like, if you have that, that is such a golden nugget. Like, why not? Like, I don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I think it's they hold on to this image of like a 22-year-old with a laptop and a margarita in their hand sitting on the
Mm,
beach, and they think like, oh, that's what I'm hiring. And it's like, no, it's all the things that you just said,
yeah.
and all the skills that they've learned along the way and the challenges they've overcome to get visas and figure out how to move from one country to another, or to, in your case, take a cat from one country to another, which comes with a whole different set of challenges. Like,
Yeah.
if you can do those things, like, you can do most jobs. It's not rocket science what a lot of us are doing. So yeah, I'm 100%
Yeah.
in the same boat as you, and I think there's like a lot to be said for the people that are living that lifestyle. More and more, it should not be viewed as like something that somebody has to overcome to get a job. It should actually be like, you should be able to put that on your CV, right?
Actually, it should. Like, it should be on your CV, like that you are a professional Airbnb house hunter. Like, that should be something because we all are. I released an episode on my podcast about this, like all the stuff that I look at when I'm like dealing with my housing. And it's not like a 3-step checklist, it's like so many things that you every other month or whatever your cadence of moving is, like, you have to think about. And it's the same with the problem solving and even like facing problems, like. And I also think that this is just like more from a like less serious but kind of important, because we have so many adventurous stories, aren't really great like conversation starters and people to kind of like break the ice a little bit. And like maybe you had like this weekend a jungle run or something, like who has that, like stuff like that. I think we can really bring like good energy in a company. So yeah, and it's important for me also that I share it here, because I noticed like one thing I really love is interviewing digital nomads. And I got that. But now my second challenge is to just not fight, but just be kind of like, okay, guys, if you don't know what it means to have digital nomads on your team, like come chat, because I want to like enable companies as well. And I think as a work remote advocate, it's not about that black and white. It's about how can this come to life in your company or in your organization. And just having that conversation is like, that's so important. And you know it because you have all these chats, but like there should be more people like you, Chase.
Well, if anybody's out there doubting whether or not they should hire digital nomads, or if you're a digital nomad wondering how you convince your boss to let you continue working from abroad, Nienke Nina is in your corner. I highly recommend checking out her book and the podcast and following along, because you are definitely advocating for that in a super positive way. So I love the way you're going about it. This was awesome. I had so much fun. Loved learning a little bit more about you and your story and all the advice you have. So thank you for sharing. I mentioned some of the things that people should find, but and we'll place links to those in the show notes. But if you could just mention where people should go to find more about you and anything you have coming up that they should know, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Nienke Nina, but that will be in the show notes. You can find the Digital Nomads Daily podcast on all your podcast platforms. There's so many platforms out there these days.
So many.
Yeah, right. For my book, you can go to book.digitalnomadsdaily.com, and on the website we have a lot of guides, resources, and yeah, like if you have questions about this lifestyle, I'm always happy to point people to other people. Like I'm an expert in this lifestyle, but I don't know it all. I partner up with digital nomad friendly companies, but also experts who can help you find a remote job or like stuff like that. So yeah, and Chase, thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I really liked also to sit on the other side, but I also loved learning more about you. I know you were with me on the podcast, but it's like conversations like this that really make me spark. So thank you.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, same likewise. This is just a lot of fun for me, and it's really cool to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and learn more about what's going on in the real world as well as the professional world. And so yeah, a lot of fun for me. I'm sure the audience got a ton out of it. So thanks for sharing. And yeah, we'll be in touch. Have fun in Brazil. I'm jealous of the sun and warm weather, and wish I could be down there bad surfing with you.
Maybe we can grab a wave in Spain or something, or in Portugal.
Sounds good. Thank you again. We'll speak soon. Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.